Let's continue to reflect on the life of Mangosuthu Buthelezi. We're now joined by Professor Otty Nxumalo, an academic and a writer. Prof, thank you very much for your time this morning. As you heard from some of the mourners from the George Goch Hostel, describing Mangosuthu Buthelezi as a hero who led with truth and respect. And as you take a look this morning also at some of the Sunday newspapers, the headlines that lead speak of Mangosuthu Buthelezi from warmonger to peacemaker, and some of the headlines also reading much of the same, saying Mangosuthu Buthelezi, the unfiltered truth of a murderous legacy. Perhaps let's start by taking a look at the traditional role or the traditional hat that he wore. How would you characterize the man, the traditionalist, the custodian of Zulu culture and tradition?
Well, I would say he was phenomenal. There are very few people who come before him in this position of traditional service who would equal his inputs. Of course, times were different in the past. He had so much to face at present that he stands alone as quite unique in his capacity to nurture and direct, mentor, and could I use even an unusual word, cajole, royalty to stand up to challenges, and especially work so hard to mold the leadership of Nxumalo, which is royalty, which is also quite vital in maintaining our Zulu culture, heritage, and history.
What happens in, I guess, rather maybe the question being, with the void that has been left, how far and wide will it be felt?
Well, it's going to be quite wide. We are very certain, but we hope that God and our spirits that have gone before us will help us as a big talent for the nation, because in these positions there isn't a formal seconded person, but there are people around him who would know what he was doing. But the challenges in royalty in the face of urbanization, democratic systems, and economic challenges, the duties of a premier to the Zulu kingdom are unprecedented.
You speak of the duties to the Zulu kingdom. While this is still news that has gripped the nation and the world at large, when we talk about who then comes in his place, or the kind of person that is needed, rather, maybe not who, but the characteristics of the kind of person that is needed, these are big shoes to fill, essentially.
Yes, we need somebody who belongs to royalty, or who is very close to royalty, who is upstanding his own clan, who has been exposed to how the kingdom runs, and somebody who is of a strong character, probably inherited from his own line or his own lineage. And of course, we should remember that a kingdom or Bukhosi is built of a collectivity. There should be people around any leader, any personality, however strong that personality is. Consultation is vital, and availability of people who would give everything for the sake of the cause.
Prof, I'd like for us then to take a look at the political figure. A number of South Africans, I'm sure you would have been aware or have taken note with people taking to either social media or whether it's on newspaper articles, where people seem to be triggered, and the past is coming back and is resurfacing, and some of the memories are not good memories. So people mentioning that, you mentioned the word Gaja, you mentioned the word Inkatha, you mention the words Buthelezi, and it strikes or instills fear in people even in 2023. How would you then characterize the political figure?
So the political figure, as far as we understood it and as we understand it and as we analyze it, was a very necessary, provided a very necessary leadership in our history. I belong to the group that says there's no one person who owns the truth, and there's no one person who owns correctness. Everybody has certain weak points and strong points. In our case, as far as his leadership is concerned, related primarily to the nation, to the African people, to the Zulu and the African people. He has been outstanding. When it came to politics, which has a lot of history, we had people who became members of first, let's address the word, it starts with a G. It is not proper for an African to call a person by the name that was given to him. It's usually used properly. It's actually exclusively him meaning gender. You're not supposed to call a person by the name given to him by his father. He was just insisting on that rightness. And it didn't have to be him as Nkosi. Every adult is not supposed to be called by his first name. Maybe the given name. We hear people say in Parliament, excuse me, making an example, Cyril. It's unbelievable for a Zulu person, but here it happens. And there is that state of affairs in our cultural settings where people insist that they can overnight be Europeanized, Westernized, call a person by name, and they prove that you are closer to that person. But on the other hand, it also proves that you take that person as an equal. And that will not be true. That is why he objected to this name, but indirectly also reminding adults of the Zulu African nation that it is wrong to call a person by the first name. All right, we can have some considerations for people who are outside their clan, but I don't think we should make a big deal of whether he should have allowed to be called himself by the first name.
Fair enough. I think there's also a third part to it, the spiritual part to it. He was a staunch Christian who made no excuse for his faith. How would you characterize the man, the spiritual figure?
Oh, it was very touching. He was very spiritual, more than what you guessed. Well, in his church, he was a lay minister, which means he could preach, he could give the Holy Sacrament. He was outspoken for transformation in the church, having been brought up or nurtured by Bishop H. Zulu. And he visited the Bishop of Canterbury. But what was outstanding was his ecumenical spirit. There's no church or religious group that he looked down upon. He's recorded as having visited Norway as a guest of the Lutheran Church. He was Anglican Church. He visited many shrines. He visited India. he visited the Pope. He visited the chamber people. He would not speak ill of any religion, and he would be available for prayers by any person who said, let's report to God. Circumstances may improve. I'm the witness. I worked with him for some time. And he would put halt on his program, just avail himself to people who said they wanted to pray, however simple they would be, and he gave his time. He inherited some of this from his mother, who was very spiritual. Apart from being singer, she composed religious songs. And when we were working, he would never skip praying before eating. He prayed because I wanted to write something about him, and he asked him for details of how he spent each minute in his life. He would meditate, he would read the daily readings, the daily messages, and he would pray. And from this, he was able to talk about forgiveness and reconciliation to the extent you never imagine. When you would still be angry, when you would still be wanting people to apologize or explain why they said this, and when he had reached a point of reconciliation, he would not look back.
Prof, you mentioned his mother. How dear and influential was she to him, especially when we speak of the musical element? You've got a number of scholars who are in 2023 and throughout the past couple of years, to be fair, who have done extensive research, extensive work, bringing up her works, bringing up her music and trying to not reimagine it, but bring it to current day discourse as well.
Yes, I know that, for instance, a musicologist, Professor Rycroft, I was an interpreter when he interviewed, that's about 50 years ago, when he interviewed Nzungulu Makoko and then Mdwana, and turned the music into stock notation. You know, before then, people thought African music could not be put into opera, could not be translated into stock notation. What is outstanding for me is that Prince Buthelezi, was a keen musician and a wonderful ear for Western music. But the mother was so influential, asking him to sing with her and to dance with her. It's unbelievable, that kind of closeness. What is outstanding is that music retains and enhances the significance of our culture and our communication with the heroes of the past and the artists of the past. You know that King Shaka was also a musician and a composer. So coming down, I know him and I heard him discuss with a person who was appointed as Inspector of Music, which was a position created in different provinces for schools. And that's where they used to discuss the importance of African music, which was at one time in danger of being downscaled. And there was that, it was not an excitement, but it was also just a phase, even coming externally, that people had to move away from their roots and all fight to qualify to be regarded as Westerners. At that time, as English-speaking people. You are young, but when you look at some pictures, you'll see some leaders, whether it's Nyerere, who had to make, this line on the head, and because they had to qualify. It didn't end physically like that. People had to speak English to each other. People had to write in English to each other. People had to artificially confess that there are certain ideas that they could not communicate in Zulu or Sotho or Xhosa.
I do beg your pardon, just for the purpose of time. We've come to the end. It's okay. I'd like for us to touch on a point that you mentioned when you speak of respect. Some mourners in Johannesburg say they will remember him as someone or a hero who led with truth and respect. You spoke about what you have observed in terms of people addressing elders by their first names, and so it goes. What worried about him, especially when it comes to the dilution, if there's such a word, or diluting tradition and respect? What worried him? Which aspects worried him?
Well, it was disrespect. That if we allowed any behavior, this would lead to disrespect, and that would lead to, use the word, dilution of Africanity.
Thank you so much for your time this morning, Professor. We appreciate your contribution. Otty Nxumalo, he is an academic and writer.